Where did the hollow moon conspiracy come from? It actually started in the 60s with the Apollo missions. During Apollo 12, the astronauts set up a moonquake experiment. Once they left the surface and returned to the command module, which was in orbit around the moon, they took the lunar module, which is kind of like the taxi that carries astronauts back and forth from the surface. So when they were done with it, they crashed it into the surface, triggering a moonquake. Basically, they wanted to make the surface vibrate so they could use the waves to take a look inside. But the vibrations were bigger and lasted a lot longer than they expected. They did this experiment a couple of times, and some Apollo missions recorded quakes up to a 5.5 on the Richter scale. That took up to an hour to completely stop, which was super surprising because ours don't last that long, meaning that the moon was much less dense than Earth. The misinterpretation appears to come from a professor at the University of Notre Dame who said that the moon was ringing like a bell. Some people took this to mean that the moon was hollow like a bell. But large, round celestial bodies can't be hollow because of gravity. The reason they're round is because they're equally collapsing under their own weight, roughly evenly drawing toward the center. Even if the moon was hollow at some point, it would have collapsed into that empty space.
I'm glad you brought it up because I also really wanted to talk about these cats because this is a new mutation that has caused a new coat pattern to come up in cats that are around Poland. And this is different from the cats from the last video. The cats in the last video were the Transylvanian cats, and the mutation that they have is called the Kapardi mutation. And that mutation is a thermal dependent mutation. It's very similar to our regular color points, whereas as the kitten grows up, depending on how cold or hot the kitten is, will result in points. But instead of being a light colored body with darker points like our regular Siamese cats is my big example, this is a mutation that causes a dark body and very light colored points, which is super cool. Whereas this mutation is called, I believe it's pronounced the Salmaki mutation, but it is translated over in English to the salty licorice mutation. And this is how you spell it here. And here is another example. For one, not a thought behind that cat's eyes. This one, clearly thinking. This one, no, it's not. But this mutation causes basically the fur at the body to be black, and then as it gets away from the body, it turns white, which gives them this salt and pepper look. And I guess a lot of these cats are tuxedo, so he has solid white right here because he has regular tuxedo, and then this part that would be black on a tuxedo is where you see the salty licorice mutation. And so far, there's not a ton known about these cats. They are currently still being researched in Finland or by Finnish researchers. But from what they could tell, these cats are just missing a chunk of their DNA, which is completely different than the Kapardi mutation. They're just missing some. But these are both regular mutations, so these can happen in any cat breed or cat population. We're just seeing them mostly in the areas that they are because both of these are recessive, and so both parents have to have this mutation and carry it for it to be passed on to kittens. So it's like hella rare to see them. If you see these cats in real life, I'm so jealous of you.
Every time this sound comes on my For You page, I always look at the comments hoping they'll be different this time, and they never are. So allow me to teach you again. Alright, let's get the notebook out. That melody you guys are hearing comes from a branch of music called Carnatic music, also known as South Indian classical music. Yeah, that's Indian music, guys. In Indian music, we have something called ragas. Ragas are essentially like melodic modes. They're kind of like scales, to be honest. They're a set of like ascending and descending notes. They kind of just go up and down. All right. If you ask us how many ragas we have in Indian music, there is no number. We could just say infinite, right? But we do have 72 main ragas. So these are our parent ragas, okay? And so they all follow a set of rules. And I explained that in a different video. But yeah, that's all you need to know for now. In the sound you just heard, you were hearing one particular raga, and that's name is Maya, Ma, Lava, Golas. Oh my god, it's so hard to write and film at the same time. It's such a mouthful, but it's Maya, Malava, Gaula. That's the name of the raga you heard in that sound. Interestingly enough, Maya Malava Gaula is one of the 72 parent ragas, so it follows those set of rules. It's one of those main ragas, and it's actually the first raga we learn in Carnatic music. Like I said before, all ragas have a set of notes going up and down. That's what you're looking at over here. Our Indian notes, these are abbreviated. They have longer names, but it's essentially sa, ri, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, sa, and then sa, ni, tha, pa, ma, ga, ri, sa. So you're not hearing don't eat all my margarita. You're hearing sa, ri, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, sa, ni, tha, pa, ma, ga, ri, sa. And to make it easier, if you want to think of it like solfege, if you guys learned do, a deer, a female deer, right? So do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It's similar to our sa, re, ga, ma, ba, da, ni, sa. Okay. Anyway, so the way you sing the scale going up and down is like this. Sa, re, ga, ma, ba, da, ni, sa, ni, da, ba, ma, ga, re, sa. Congrats, you just learned your first Carnatic Raga.
Fact. The more obscure the philosopher, the more insane their philosophy. These guys are all totally obvious. Theory of the forms, form and content, Socratic dialogues, behold a man, suicide or coffee, I think therefore I am, hell is other people, communism, logic alone as truth, knowledge can be gotten through luck, and the tabula rasa. These guys are also pretty intuitive. The state alone dictates truth. There's no fixed self, only sympathies. There's an objective moral law to which we're all bound. Politics is about general, not particular wills. Faith is a paradox and a leap. Revolution can go too far. There's a moral calculus that allows us to determine right and wrong. Free will is needed for faith. There's an unconscious that controls us behind our backs because this is the best of all possible worlds in which we control our passions for experiments and living so that Aristotle can be baptized. Now, these guys get a little suspicious of what we're talking about. It's better, for instance, to have died than lived. God is only nature. Christianity is a slave's morality. Culture is an industry. Equality is founded on ignorance. Capitalism is only Christianity. Our bodies and our signs are controlled by power. For those in colonial positions, violence is the only way out. History ended in 1830. We are fundamentally different from each other, and there's no way out. Language is just what we do. There's nothing else. And if we're in this world, it's because we don't know what to do about it. We're thrown into it. And the world is just a giant will to which we're all subject. For these guys, we don't even know what we're talking about. Culture is an endless series of incomprehensible references. The unconscious is like a language that we need to mathematically analyze. We need to let schizophrenics run free because the economy is not based on scarcity but excess and sacrifice. We perform who we are. There is no fixed us. There are fundamental existential enemies that we can't get over. Politics should be based on solipsism. The economy is just based on internal desire. Nothing that is outside the economy can do anything but be the economy. And we're all interconnected, no matter who or where we are. These guys want to get rid of what we're talking about altogether because nature has no place for man. All acts of intercourse have the condition for the possibility of grape. If we want to do theory, we actually have to do fiction. The future is untenable because we've forgotten the past. Existence is just God's body decaying. The revolution of the proletariat really means returning to monkey, and materialist dialectics are only about sex. These guys want to get rid of everything we've ever previously talked about to accelerate a future, abolish gender using technology, to get rid of all sex and gender differences, because technology is intrinsically feminine, because no human subjectivity exists even as experience, it's all interconnection, meaning that we must try to merge with technology. Guys have almost nothing to say because they don't even exist. She was written as a meme to confuse people on Instagram. He is a hypothetical character used to describe the conspiracy of existence itself against the human race. And he was invented based on H.P. Lovecraft to discuss Lemurian time vectors invented by these guys before the age of Atlantis. These guys are just comedians.
I'm about to put you on to one of the most incredible and transformational things you will ever listen to in your life. So this is the Telepathy Tapes by Kai Dickens, and it explores the cases of telepathic abilities within the most incredible group. It is individuals who are autistic and nonverbal. I'm going to be doing a 4-video deep dive, but I want to give you guys the spark notes of it. So Kai was first introduced to the phenomenon of telepathy within nonverbal autistic individuals through a podcast that was featuring Dr. Diane Powell, who is a neuropsychologist that came from Johns Hopkins, and I believe she's at Harvard now. They talk of the tens of thousands of cases of mothers who think, my child can read my mind. But a lot of them don't bring it up because they just think they're crazy, or other people will think they're crazy. But they're not, and it's an incredibly common experience. So on the podcast with Dr. Powell, they set up these experiments with insane controls. It's crazy, it's crazy! They'll take someone like the mother, they'll put them in a room, they'll give them this random number generator, or they'll show them pictures. The other room, a child will be blindfolded. After the mother is shown something, the child will be told that they can take off the blindfold, and then they can type into an iPad what they saw. These kids, they never miss. They never miss. They see through their mother's eyes. They hear what she's thinking. Oh, and if you think that's where it ends, no, we're just getting started. One of the reoccurring things that comes up when they talk to all these various children, does not matter where they are in the world, they talk about something they call the Hill. It is a place where they can all send their consciousness and talk to other children with the same abilities, other people with the same abilities. The podcast talks about a kid from Georgia who was best friends with a kid from Utah, and how they would talk every single day by going to the Hill. So many of these children have been able to communicate through letterboards or typing. The podcast teaches you what that is. Here's some of the things that they wish the world would know. Number one, that they know things. They know things that they can teach us, but no one will listen. Another quote that was incredible is they said, in my world, we don't speak, we communicate through our eyes. Another said, audible speakers, us, we only see one side of the story. There's so much to it that we don't know. It's so fascinating to me that every faith-based tradition talks about a time coming where the dumb shall speak. But I guess the question is, are you willing to listen?